Donald Trump.
Welcome to Discussing Dad Life, where we break down bullshit so you don't have to. I'm Void, this is No, and let's go.
So, nice. Welcome to Main Event Mondays. This is Noel, joined with
Justin.
So, we got some time, and we'll see if that lady that said she was going to show actually shows for our Friday episode. If not, we're going to have to call an audible again.
All right, sounds good.
So, what's going on in the world?
Whole lot, I guess. Like always, the news cycle never stops.
Yeah. So, I guess let's start with the IVF.
Okay.
We talked about that briefly yesterday or the day before or something like that.
Yeah.
So Donald Trump is, I don't know why he's saying this either. I got to thinking about it. I'm just like, because the Democrats are just going to lie anyway and say like, oh, he actually wants to get rid of it, even though he's coming out saying that he wants the government to either A, provide it, or B, mandate that insurance covers it.
Right.
And I guess where I'm going to go with this first is I don't understand who he's talking to, because he's not going to win any Democrat voters over by this.
Of course not.
But he is alienating the pro-life portion of the right wing.
Yeah.
So I don't know what he's doing. Do you have a thought on this? Maybe
it's a really weird hardline stance for him to take in the pro-life debate. Nobody on either side is talking about it. So to me, it doesn't make any sense to be such a hardliner on something that's kind of a niche, topic. It doesn't. Nobody who's pro-life or pro-choice really hits the in vitro fertilization, unless it's a way to try to make pro-lifers look foolish. Isn't that a life as well? But yeah, as far as the debate goes, he's not playing to his base, and he's, like you said, he's not going to win over any Democrats. No. It doesn't matter what he says; they're not coming over to his side. So yeah.
But, so I'm hearing of this, and I am thinking about it, and I am drawing a blank. The only thing I can come up with is that he's trying to cut off an angle of attack that the Democrat that Kamala might use, which is he wants to get rid of IVF. So instead of being like waiting until something happens, he's getting out in front of it. But I don't understand why he would do that, because he doesn't even have to talk abortion.
No, and he already said he mentioned in front of the Christian group he talked in front of right after the Republican National Convention. He said doing a nationwide abortion ban is a losing issue for Republicans. And it's just really strange, because there's so many people that came out that are pro-life that said, well, I'm not voting for Trump now, and I can withdraw my vote. And it's like, okay, great, good for you. Here's the problem is, look, even if you disagree with Trump on this issue, you're going to let Kamala Harris and the Democrats then into power, and they were literally having motorhomes, or basically buses, abortion buses for their the DNC. The DNC.
Yeah.
And so you're going to let that party now in power because you disagree with him on one topic when it comes to abortion. It's cutting off your nose to spite your face. It's
100%.
It doesn't make any sense, and it's well, this isn't the perfect candidate that does everything that I want. So okay, great. So you're going to set us back in the rights that have been won in the last 5 years for infants. You're going to undo all of that because of this one tiny issue. It doesn't make sense.
So what I find hilarious is, like, he is the most pro-life president this country's ever seen.
Yeah.
The simple fact that he is unwilling to go as far as they want him to they're willing to take the L and hold the L and sacrifice all the ground that he helped them accomplish.
Right.
Just because he's unwilling to go to their hardline stance.
Well, I will still stand on this. I do agree that Trump did have a lot of pro-life policies. However, Joe Biden is the most pro-life president in our lifetime.
Why do you say that?
Roe v. Wade got turned over during his presidency. Way to go, Joe.
That was Trump, buddy.
No, it was during Biden's presidency that happened. The Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade during Joe Biden's presidency. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. And Trump was the one that put it all through. But
Well, yeah, the ruling.
now that I'm
the
thinking
ruling,
of the timeline,
yeah,
yeah.
timeline. So
So,
there's been a lot of big victories for the Republicans during Joe Biden's presidency. Affirmative action, abortion, quite a few other decisions have happened during the Joe Biden presidency. So, way to go, Joe! I appreciate what you've done for our country.
Oh gosh, man, I'm sitting here like, what are you talking about, man? Joe didn't do that. No, yeah, okay. I was a little slow on the uptake.
No, you're good. You're good. No, you're right. You're right.
So, I kind of messed this up. I said Trump doesn't have to talk about abortion. What I meant to say is Trump doesn't have to talk about IVF because abortion and IVF are two completely separate issues.
Right.
I know the left likes to try lumping them together, but they are different. And on Wednesday's episode, I actually do want to dive into IVF with you.
Okay.
I want to explore from a religious perspective and an ethical perspective, and then the technological perspective as to what IVF actually imposes or presents, and then what kind of policies do we have to start thinking about imposing. But it's not just a moral question, it's also an ethical question. It's not a religious question per se, it's also ethical, and there is a lot of technological steps that are going to be coming down the pipe pretty soon too, that it's going to be a deep dive conversation.
Yeah.
So going back to Trump though, however, going the IVF route doesn't make sense.
Right.
And then also doing his conversations on abortion, and then even speaking about that bill that DeSantis and the Republican Party down in Florida are trying to put, and him voicing what he would like to. It doesn't make sense why he's wading into this issue when literally all he has to do is say, you know what, it is an important issue. However, this issue is not nearly as important as our sovereignty as a nation with the open border.
Right.
It's not as important as our national security state with Ukraine now invading Russia, with Israel going in and invading
Palestine.
There you go. Thank you. I just had a major brain fart. So, and then all the conflict. I mean, the Middle East is in an uproar. We got issues going on between Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
We got the petrodollar weakening, and Saudi Arabia selling oil up into China and Russia with the ruble. I actually believe they're using on that one. So, I mean, there is a national security stake that is much greater, that is higher of an importance than the abortion conversation right now.
Well, and Trump hasn't changed his stance on abortion. He has always said, well, it's a states' rights issue. It's a states' rights issue. And that's what he said again. He just said, I'm not going to put a federal ban on abortion. And honestly, it doesn't do us any good. Because if he does, then guess what?
He's doing what Roe v. Wade did.
Well, yeah. Going back to that, if he does it with a presidential order and overturns it, okay, great. Then that means the next time a Democrat gets in, they're just going to reverse it back. And it creates... This is not a presidential election issue. This is we need to get a better job done by our senators and our congressmen. And
they're never going to weigh in on that one.
Well, that's because we have made it to where the president signs a bill into law and bypasses the entire reason Congress has been instituted, so they can.
Congress did it themselves, though.
Right.
Like take the EPA, take the FDA, take any of these executive position or executive branch positions that they've created. They basically said, hey, we're going to abdicate our duty of actually having a conversation and figuring out how these things should be ran. We're going to say we're going to form a government agency to handle this, and it's going to be under the auspices of the president. Well, that they have basically sacrificed their job. The only thing that they're doing now is insider trading, basically.
Well, yeah, and back in the day, I remember, congressmen and senators, they weren't afraid to say, all right, I'm going to make an unpopular decision. But now they just want to be in power for as long as possible.
Yeah.
And so they
can make money.
they don't take hard stances. They don't take strong positions, and they just vote.
A few of them do. A few of them do.
Yeah, but generally it's not. It's not for conservative rights. It's for pushing a liberal agenda, unfortunately. And so,
but that isn't necessarily a bad thing, though, either, right? And the reason I say that is because having conservative stances is not necessarily the right stances to have, right?
Well, when it comes to things as far as having trans surgeries for children, the conservative position is the correct one because the other position is child abuse. Well, I'm
not disagreeing with you there. What I'm saying is like overwhelmingly just having a strong conservative position does not make it right.
Sure, but therein lies the problem. The left isn't afraid to take strong stances, and the right, well, we don't know, and they hem and they haw, and unfortunately, it's their lack of action, it's their lack of pressing in and fighting for their actual values and what they're supposed to stand for, and the reason that they got elected. You are there to represent the conservative position, and if you're not going to do that, and you're not going to do it well, and you're not going to stand strong and pass conservative policies, the reason you were put there, well, you're not doing any service to the people who put you in that position. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Democrats are like, yeah, my constituents are saying, yeah, let's kill babies and let's support the trans agenda and let's turn everything we know on its head. And
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah.
I guess
Vivek Ramaswamy, I just wish they had more guts to stand on their morals. Yeah.
But I look at Vivek's policies and how he's not super conservative. He's more of a moderate again.
I don't know.
He strikes me as more of a moderate. His policy positions I mean, yes, he does take a very different approach to like the trans issues and stuff like that than like maybe a liberal or moderate would take. But I think what part of our problem that we're seeing is the fact that we have the left that is fractured. I don't think they realize maybe they do realize how badly they're fractured, but you have the classical liberal camp and you have progressives on the left. And the progressives are pushing everyone else out. That's why like Tulsi Gabbard and I mean, for the simple fact that RFK, a Kennedy, legacy Democrat, is backing Trump has to say something that the progressive wing of the Democratic Party has pushed out everyone else, and now the Republicans have become the catch-all, the umbrella.
Well, and that's where it's if you don't get in line with us advancing all these issues, and you don't agree with these things that didn't exist until 5-6 years ago, then you're out. You're not a Democrat if you don't believe wholesale everything we espouse. Whereas on the right, there's plenty of people that say, and also it's the way that the Democrats push. They're like, if you don't agree with trans hormones for children that are 5 and under, then you're a right-wing extremist. And it's their own rhetoric that pushes people out.
Yeah, 100%.
Because
that's what I'm saying.
They keep moving so far left that, again, you are considered on the right if you just think, you know what, the state should have the right to make their own decisions.
You just made me think of something. There are plenty of people that I know personally that don't believe that the left is getting further left, that they think the right is getting further right, and that they're staying the same. And I'm like, I don't know how you possibly can come to that conclusion.
No.
Like, I am not a conservative. I am more of an independent libertarian kind of individual. Yet they have gone, and I'm sitting here looking at it and I'm just like, in all reality, the conservatives actually shifted to the left a little bit for the most part.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And the left, they kind of shifted to the left, but then you have the progressives that went way out there.
Right.
Way to left field.
Right.
And unfortunately, they've taken control of that party,
right.
Which I don't see how they can survive it.
Right.
Because you remember that old saying used to be like, what was it? conservative, fiscally conservative, socially liberal.
Yeah.
Right. It's now almost flipped, where you're socially conservative and fiscally liberal, right? Because a lot of people, because the umbrella is catching a lot more people.
Yeah.
And they're still for government spending in certain situations. However, they cannot get aboard, or they cannot get on board with the woke progressive agenda.
And the interesting thing, and when we talked last week, when you asked me, am I more kind of Republican, libertarian, independent? I've always been kind of more independent in my thought. However, the two big issues for me that turned me more toward the Republican side is when they went against big business. When they said, you know what, we're done just defending big business wholesale. And they said this isn't necessarily a good thing to defend corporations. And then 2020 hits and we see Pfizer's making the biggest profits ever. And the left becomes the spokesperson for the corporations.
Yeah.
And Rage Against the Machine is sitting there. Tom Morello is sitting there telling us how we should obey our government like good little boys and
Rage
girls.
for the machine.
Yes, yes. And then the other position is war.
Oh, yeah.
Republicans were always the party of war. And when Trump went, we're not entering any new wars for the first time since Jimmy Carter. Okay, great. Now we're looking at it, and it's like the Republican Party went, yeah, why are we going to war all the time? And so the Republicans are now not the pro-war party like they used to be.
100%.
And those two issues kind of shifted me a little bit more.
However, there is a nuance to that pro-war stance. Because a lot of the Republicans that are war hawkish, they're the never Trumpers. They're the ones that actually left to support the Democrats because they are supporting the war agenda.
Right.
So there is a little bit of a nuance because Trump,
big spending helps them.
Yeah, big spending does help them.
Yeah.
Trump did do an amazing realignment for the Republican Party.
Sure.
So, which is one reason why I can say that I don't mind the Republican Party as much. I still think there's some dumb, like Lindsey Graham. Okay, I'm going to call you out. Lindsey Graham's an idiot.
I don't think he's a conservative. He
he's
said
a war hawk.
He said we should bomb Russia because Vladimir Putin said something. And it's like
it's
no, Lindsay, just stay in your lane, man. Just
God.
But and then he when he pretended to cry when Trump got the assassination attempt. And he was like, I went to talk to him and I missed hearing his voice. And it's like, I've never met. He's so disingenuous. Yeah,
there was one point, Graham 2.0. You remember that?
Yeah,
Graham 2.0 for like a hot minute.
For like 2 weeks,
he was actually a decent person.
Yeah.
And then like I don't know what happened. It's like his battery got reset or something like that. Like, and then I'm just like, dude, what the hell?
Yeah, he got his firmware update. Yeah.
But what Trump did to the Republican Party is actually something the Republican Party actually needed.
Absolutely.
Which was a realignment. Trump shifted the party from being big business to local business. He shifted the Republican Party into a populist movement.
Right. And the guy who owns some of the biggest businesses in America did that, which is insane. But yeah,
100%. And then what I do. I like every now and again. I like to get in Facebook fights. Those are fun, right? Have you ever done those?
I have. I get into them less and less because the quality of people you're arguing with on Facebook go ahead.
So I remember getting into a Facebook fight, and I said Trump is the. This was back when Bernie and Trump and everyone was doing it, and Bernie had dropped out, and Hillary got the nomination. Blah blah blah. And I was sitting there, and I was just like, you know, all the Bernie bros should be voting for Trump now because he is the only populist candidate left. He's the only anti-establishment candidate left. Yeah. And immediately people, like this one guy just responded. He's just like, what are you talking about? He's one of the biggest business owners in America. He is the establishment. I'm like, can you not get the nuance? Just because you are successful and have major businesses does not necessarily mean you're part of the establishment. Part of the establishment is saying that the big businesses must control what everyone else does.
Well, and to go back to a little bit of Bernie's hypocrisy, he's the 1%, you know, they're evil. And it's like, you look, he has 3 different lake houses and then you're like, Bernie, you're part of the 1%. So if the 1% is evil, then you're telling on yourself and saying that you are evil. And so yeah.
You're making me think of the millionaires and the billionaires.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
you notice that after he sold his book and he became a millionaire, now it's not the millionaires and the billionaires, it's just the billionaires.
It's just the billionaires. Yes.
Sorry. You reminded me of that.
100%. And it was the 1%, and now it's just the billionaires.
Yes,
because
exactly.
people brought that up, and he was like, "Oh, I better shift. Shift that talking point."
Yeah, he needed to. Yeah. That was bad. Oh, okay. So we covered Trump and his positive shifts for the Republican Party.
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at the previous two candidates with McCain and
Romney.
Mitt Romney. Oh my gosh, what lame duck candidates they were.
Yeah,
like there was no teeth to them. But
Mitt Romney was a horrible
the Republican
candidate.
Party did need that shift, and Trump was just the guy for the job. So yeah.
Well, it was the Democrats probably could have actually been feeling a lot of the energy if they would have let Trump run the populist candidacy through the Democrats like he originally wanted to.
Right.
How I'm viewing politics in America right now is not necessarily a left versus right issue. It's an authoritarian versus anti-authoritarian issue. People who are more of a populist movement, more freedom-loving, they're tending to shift to the conservatives because that's where the populist movement is sitting.
Right.
That's not because they're conservative or have conservative values. It's just they're the ones that are willing to embrace that conversation versus the Democrats right now who are the party for authoritarianism.
Well, the conservatives, in conserving, what they are trying to conserve is what America was set up as. You be governed by your local principalities, and federal government stays out of it as much as possible, but federal government is there for support. It's there to provide a standing army. It's there for the needs that it clearly has defined.
Yeah.
But conservatism has always been about small government, get involved in your local municipality and affect where you can be effective. Whereas now, like you said, synonymous with the left is authoritarianism and just
it's
wholesale. The big G federal government needs to control every aspect of your life.
Well, see, now you're touching on the reason why I think it's absolutely stupid that people are trying to push for Trump to do an abortion ban on a federal level.
Exactly.
Right? Because if you were truly a conservative,
yes,
if you were truly on the right, like you want to say you are,
yes,
you would be 100% against the federal government demanding you do anything.
Absolutely.
Right?
Because for the exact reason of the flip.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So I was ecstatic when Roe v. Wade got overturned because that is not a federal issue.
Right.
It is a state's issue.
Yeah.
The Constitution sets forth that it's a state issue.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people would agree with me on the right, especially in the pro-life camp. They would agree with me that it is a states' rights issue. However, now they're wanting to take a playbook from the Democrats and say, we're going to cram down from the federal government and enforce and to me, that is just absolutely asinine.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what's happening. They want to impose their
taking me
will.
out.
I know.
Sorry.
Almost happened. I saw it from the side. I wasn't gonna.
Sorry, man.
Yeah.
But you are right.
But yeah, they basically want to swing the hammer. They're like, well, our guy's probably gonna win, so we want to be able to make a federal ban on it. And it's again, it goes back to, this is against everything you're saying. You don't want the federal government to tell you what you can and can't do with a life in the womb. And so, yeah, let's leave it up to the states. And guess what? If the federal government says this is what the rule of law is, guess what? California's still going to have it legal. New York's still going to have it legal. Washington State is still going to have it legal. It doesn't matter. They're going to supersede. They're going to find a way to work around the federal government abortion ban. Yeah. So even if you institute it, it's not going to work.
They're going to win in court.
Exactly.
100% they will win in court.
Yeah.
But the other issue that I think that I have with it is like, live action? Lib action? Something like that?
I know what organization you're talking about.
They're like not Lena Dunham. Whatever her name is.
Yes.
She's like, she's Trump is not doing this, so he's going to lose all the pro-life votes. And I'm sitting here thinking, and you hit on it earlier, which is you're basically going to sacrifice the guy that is actually standing in the way that gave you incremental wins towards your position to completely reverse all that to get all 50 states to the point of at birth abortions.
Well, and what did conservatives who were pro-life say for years and years, decades even? This is not a federal issue.
Yeah. And now
why?
they're wanting to make
Because they knew that if it was a federal issue, that
they would lose.
They would lose, and so with that, they're like, let's make it a states' rights issue. Roe v. Wade gets overturned, becomes a states' rights issue, and now all of a sudden it's not good enough because it's not perfect. Look, in government, in all of that stuff, you have to take the wins where you get them.
Yep.
We got the win with Roe v. Wade. Let's stand upon that. And now, hey, if you live in a conservative state, great. If you live in a liberal state where that's legal, guess what? Maybe you should consider relocating to a conservative state that aligns with your values, because living in a place that aligns with your values is what being a conservative is all about.
I'm just seeing if this works. Nope. It gave me an error. Ugh, my stream deck's freezing. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the pause. I was trying to play with it and make it work. I need to update that computer. We switched back to the main computer, but obviously it needs to restart and get updated.
Trouble, yeah.
I was basically going to give you a flawless victory on that one because you're right, man. You're right. We can continue beating this dead horse, but I think we can move on.
Yeah.
I think I will leave it with. I will leave it as the social appetite of the American people is not banning abortion. In the simple fact that you as a pro-life person cannot understand that you are never going to get the full win you want, it is bad. You ever heard that saying, don't let perfection get in the way of progress?
Yeah.
That's exactly what they're doing right here.
Right.
So stupid.
Yeah.
So let's move on.
Yeah.
Because we kind of hit on it a little bit,
Yeah.
which is Trump needs to start getting away from the abortion IVF conversations and start talking about national security, because we are the closest. I mean, we have hot conflicts going on everywhere. The Afghan pullout, and I'm going to correct myself. The Afghan surrender that Joe Biden perpetrated destabilized the Middle East. It gave a strong signal to Putin that the U.S. was not in a position to help its allies, opening up the doors into Ukraine being invaded.
Yeah.
It is another signal to China and the inroads that they've been making, especially into Africa, in capitalizing on the rare earth minerals. And then we also have the, how to say it? Because I offended another person outside when I was trying to explain this, because I wish people weren't so basic, I guess, maybe.
Okay.
Like have a little bit more
It's
thought.
almost pumpkin spice latte season, so yeah, basic might be the right word. Go ahead.
Basic bitch. Sorry. But there's a terrorist organization that sits on the border
Right.
of Israel with its main mission of destroying all Israel, or all Jewish people. That's its mission. Now, that is not saying that all Muslims are terrorists. I have to call that out because, unfortunately, we do not have high-level thinkers in all aspects of life. Right. So they are going to sit there and think like I'm saying all of them are terrorists. No, there are some that have these radical beliefs and are perpetrated. I mean, October 7th was a huge attack on Israel.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a huge Israel supporter in the fact that, like, I'm going to say we need to give them a bunch of money. We need to send them military. We need to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Because I'm more anti-war or anti-interventionalist.
Yeah.
But I do fully acknowledge that as their own state, they have a right to defend themselves how they see fit.
Sure.
And if they have, if you and I were bordering and my main goal was your destruction, would you not think that a preemptive strike or in some way, shape, or form to control my aggression to you is warranted?
Yeah. That's definitely, I mean, We could demonstrate here on the podcast, but I think it might be our last episode. But yes, if you were to launch an offensive towards my border, yeah, you're going to see some retaliation.
Yeah.
And so it's just strange that the attack came not against a government building or against it came against, people who were kind of out celebrating. And so that's where, like you said, not all are this. It's that same thing with Trump, where when he was speaking about the thugs, it was MS-13. When we're speaking about people who are looking to destroy Israel, it's not all Palestine. It is the people.
It's Hamas, the Hezbollah.
Yeah, it's their goal. And
in all reality,
it's their stated goal.
It is their stated goal.
Yeah.
In all reality, they're actually very cowardice, because the other people that are living there, the innocent people that are living there, they're using as human shields.
Yes.
Right. So it's a very complex issue, and it's not just black and white.
Right. And I would even say they are using them as human shields, but then does that give Israel the right? And that's where it's like you see both sides of the conflict, and you're like, man, I don't know how to settle either one of these, because they both seem terrible. Mm-hmm. The loss of innocent civilian life, no matter what country you live in, is terrible. And I think there's plenty of blame to go around on how both of them have engaged in this conflict. So, yes.
I would agree with you on a 50,000 foot view level. But if we start looking into the nuances, I would actually say that Israel is actually being fairly restrained in the collateral damage that they are incurring or causing to happen.
The problem for me is when you shut off power and electricity and water to civilians, so that
100%
they
agree with you on that one.
And that's where I go, I don't like either activity. Now, did one person start it? Yes, but ultimately, like, how can we figure out how to maybe get those two sides to peace? And if we can't, is that really our business to be in there? I agree with you. I'm kind of more of the, hey, hands off.
They need to figure it out on their own. In some way, shapes, or form, I kind of agree with that. However, there was an interesting theory that I heard, which actually goes back to the Abraham Accords that, what was his name, Jared Kushner? Orchestrated?
Sounds familiar.
Under Trump?
Oh, I don't know.
So the Abraham Accords were the ones where, like, the UAE was actually letting direct flights, and Saudi Arabia was letting Israel fly through their airspace into the UAE.
Okay,
right,
because it's a big tourist spot. Yeah.
And there was it's the Abraham Accords, right? Which was basically that economically working together was better for everyone,
right?
And it was a way to lessen the hatred amongst the two opposing religions, and it seemed to work really well. However, the theory that came into place was that because the Abraham Accords came into play, that the Palestinian area, which I kind of struggle calling it Palestine. It's technically not a nation. It's never been recognized as a nation or anything like this. But at the same time, I get whatever. I'm going to go off on a tangent if I go down that rabbit hole. It kind of ostracized them from the rest of it. So it basically created a boiling pot that had to go over at some point, which is what led to October 7th.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if I agree with that theory insofar as Hamas and Hezbollah have done an excellent job of creating so much tension among the Muslim nations in that area where they're no longer even wanted. Like Egypt will not let them in.
Right.
Jordan will not let them in. There's a lot of countries that will not let these refugees, these people that are trying to flee this area, except for Israel. Israel's actually, hey, you guys can be here, just stop trying to kill us.
Right.
But they won't do it. And then all the other nations around it are just like, you guys have tried overthrowing our governments too, so we're not going to let you get back in.
Right.
So it's these radical people that have an agenda that is pushing it. So it's just really hard. And I don't necessarily know if I agree with that theory of the Abraham Accords are what caused this. Because the tensions were there prior to that. The tensions are going to be there long after that. And Joe Biden and his administration have done an excellent job of basically destroying the Abraham Accords and destabilizing the Middle East, which is great for the Democrat war hawks because they love dropping bombs on innocent kids.
Well, it's also great for the memes. Have you seen the videos of the people in Afghanistan trying to use that workout equipment that was left behind and some of the missiles and oh my goodness, that as terrible as that withdrawal was, man, the laughs. I will remember those visual images of them getting into the curling machine with their legs and being completely inverted. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So I think what's interesting with the whole Afghan, I think the Afghan surrender that Joe Biden showed to the world is, I think, was what started really the downhill, the lack of respect and our loss of strength in the global market. Granted, in some ways, I actually almost appreciate the fact that he actually did drop our strength down, because the United States has been historically, since post-World War II, since we were the only industrialized nation left to manufacture, we took full advantage of it, and we have been demanding certain things from certain countries since then. And in a lot of ways, it's like our values, the American values, do not necessarily go to everyone else. So in some ways, it's actually nice that we dropped strength, per se, because we should not be having so much cultural influence over all other nations. We need to let them be them and start focusing internally.
Well, and it makes us less of a target, weirdly enough, because when we were the superpower, everybody's gunning for number one. But now it's like, well, who's number one? Is it the United States? Is it Russia? Is it China? And so because of that, I think the countries already did not have respect for Joe Biden.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it was a quiet undertone, but it was like when Joe fumbled that so badly, because I heard somebody say, well, Trump started moving troops out, so it was his fault. It's like, you can start moving troops out, but it's the way that you do it. It's the way you leave is the biggest part of how this happens. And to literally have people hanging on to planes as they fall to their death. Yeah. Like, look, man, that sort of stuff, the military was woefully unprepared for how to get out of Afghanistan. And that's the job of your commander-in-chief, is to make sure that we do things well when it comes to diplomacy.
So you hit this earlier. Trump did not start any wars. However, there is one thing Trump did, right? And we can call him out on it, because Trump, one, stopped reporting bombings done by dronings. Two, increased the amount of bombings done by dronings. Now, and the reason why I bring that up is because if you are going to remove your troops from a certain area, you can't just remove them, stop intelligence, and then tell everyone, hey, use the civilian airport that you can't defend or secure, and let the Taliban just come in and run everything out. You have to provide some sort of protection. So you're going to keep intelligence in the area, and you may, because you are reducing, you're going to be reducing the numbers of troops on the ground, boots on the ground. You may start increasing drone striking to keep the Taliban from encroaching on you, right? So what you're saying is 100% spot on. But I also want to highlight the fact that, yes, Trump was great on the not starting any new wars. However, he did actually increase the number of bombings. That is 100% true and factually true. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. We can recognize that dropping bombs on and killing kids is bad. Yeah. But, Obama targeted children, whereas Trump actually was not trying to target children.
Right. Yeah. And that's, I definitely, look, are there measures you're going to have to take to defend a nation without actually being engaged in a war? Sure. Yeah. And that's where, Trump's basically sitting there trying to play cleanup on something that got started 20 plus years ago. Yep. And so.
Thank you, Junior.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was just trying to impress Dad.
You want to know? Absolutely. Crazy story. So a church group that I was with, we were in Washington, D.C., and we were scheduled to pray. We had prayed with a few senators and congressmen, including Ted Kennedy. Okay. We were scheduled, it was Tuesday night, we were scheduled to meet with George W. Bush in the morning to pray. That night, he declares war. And we were sitting in our hotel rooms, and we went, I guess we're not going to the White House tomorrow. So, yeah.
Gosh. Yeah, he was just trying to impress Dad. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, we could go into the conspiracy on 9/11. I mean, there's so many conspiracies around 9/11. Maybe we take an episode and do that.
Okay.
Maybe if she doesn't show up, maybe we do a conspiracy episode around 9/11.
That'd be interesting.
Do you have a lot of info on that? I know a crap ton of.
I don't have
around
much info as far as 9/11, but as far as I've got a little bit more as far as Dub's dad and some of that sort of stuff.
That might be fun.
And there's also a really funny video. It's a satire video. I don't know if you have room for that, but it's a 2-minute music video called Kitty History by
Kitty History.
Yes, I'm trying to remember the name of the guy. It is The Whitest Kid You Know. It's the skit show. It's Trevor Moore. He's the one who released that song. Anyway, very funny stuff. But yeah, I'm down to talk about some legit conspiracies. And
we can expand it out.
Actual theories, yes.
We can expand it out just off of 9/11. I mean, because we can go all the way back to Pearl Harbor if you want to. I mean, World War I.
Yeah.
Franz Ferdinand.
Yeah,
Franz Ferdinand.
Yeah.
Thank you. Gosh. Prince Franz Ferdinand.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. That's what I was trying to go with. We can go all the way back to his conspiracy on his asset. Oh,
Yeah.
Man, I mean, there's...
Well, I've also heard conspiracies regarding Lincoln, so...
Oh yeah, we can go... Yeah. And then the JFK, obviously, we can touch base on that
that's
one.
not a conspiracy. That's just factual right now.
Everyone agrees.
Why do you think I heard this, and I thought it was hilarious, and I'm sure it's been overdone, but... How hilarious would it be if RFK conceded, endorsed Trump, and then Trump made him head of the CIA?
I've heard that, and I was just like, that's... Yeah.
It's too good to be true.
Well, supposedly Trump's actually going to be making that coalition or whatever for presidential assassination attempts or presidential assassinations and attempts.
Interesting.
And that RFK may be named as the head of that.
Man, if they gave him all the information, here's the thing. I just need somebody else to deliver the reporting to me because I cannot listen to RFK talk.
No.
RFK Jr., he just, I'm like,
I prefer him over Biden.
But his voice, it sounds like a mower trying to,
no, you're 100%
it's so
right.
unlistenable. That's the only reason... Well, one of the main reasons I was like, please don't let this guy get any political traction because if we have to deal with 4 years of this guy, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Fair. So I do want to move back to the Russia-Ukraine issue, right? So we've all heard the flip-flop and tales and all the money that we've sent over to Ukraine to help fight against Russia.
The most money we have spent on any war in United States history adjusted for inflation, and that includes the Civil War when we were fighting ourselves. We have spent more money on this war than any war in our history.
And we're not even fighting it.
But we're not in it. Fascinating.
So Ukraine has now invaded Russian territory.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, you were telling me this before the podcast. I actually was not aware.
Yeah, using U.S. weapons and intel and everything. They're basically and volunteers. They have encroached into Russian territory. Now, my fear is Putin is not a nice guy. He's not a megalomaniac, like they try to make him out to be.
Right.
However, Ukraine has now put them in a position he has to defend his people.
Right.
Sure, he was the aggressor going into Ukraine. And you can make the argument that he was actually trying to protect the pro-Russian portions of Ukraine from the being persecuted by the Ukrainian government. You can make that argument. I mean, there's lots of stuff that goes into this. But the simple fact that now you have Ukrainian troops and volunteers from other nations encroaching into Russian territory, the level of nuclear armament that Russia has at its disposal has now become, it was already a fear factor of mine. Maybe not, on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe about a 3 or a 4.
Right.
With them actually encroaching into the territory, I'm thinking that's ramping up closer to a 6 or a 7. And to me, that is much more of a viable issue that our politics should be talking about and our news media should be talking about. However, we're getting close to the election, so the election is obviously high on everyone's list, and all this stuff is kind of falling to the wayside.
Right.
However, it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Because if nuclear war does nothing for anyone.
Right.
And Russia's already, I mean, from my understanding, they're already using nuclear weaponry on the battlefield. Artillery shells and bullets. Depleted uranium. Which is nuclear arsenals, technically.
Yeah, I'm not as concerned with them using, because they're not going to need it against Ukraine. They've
It's not Ukraine that's the issue.
Right.
It's the NATO support that Ukraine signifies that's
Right.
the issue. I mean,
but even so,
We're gonna
I honestly I think Putin, he could have stomped them out from the beginning, and he chose to kind of slow roll it. He could have gone full force with it.
He wasn't
and
trying to capture all of Ukraine.
Exactly. And so that's why now that they're coming to him, I still don't think he's going to engage in nuclear war, because he's saving that for something bigger. He's not going to utilize it.
I can respect what you're trying to say.
Yeah,
that makes
if
sense.
if we choose to stick our nose where it doesn't belong, because we've done it financially.
Oh no, we've done it militarily as well, because we are supplying them with
right.
defensive weaponry
Right.
that is being used as offensive.
However, without troops on the ground, we're not technically in warfare.
That's
with
not
them.
true
And
though
so-
either. Because the volunteers, when I'm quoting unquoting volunteers, are actually military service members or retired or non-active
but still
military service members.
technically.
But
Exactly.
it's basically we're supplying mercenaries to them, and it's not just the U.S.
Well,
it's
not
England,
it's not our
it's
best
France.
and brightest.
Well, like could be argumentative, right?
It's trust me, we're not sending Green Beret. We're not sending our best and brightest there.
Our best and brightest are actually going over to Afghan to get the civilians that Biden's left over there and is not using the military for. They're
Right.
actually going over there and figuring out using their contacts personally to get our people home.
Absolutely. And so that's why, again, we're not technically in the war. When we cross that technically line, that is when
I think the argument
I would say we have to worry a lot more about that.
I think the argument could be made that we have technically crossed that line. That's my stance.
Well, that's the thing is, we've given financial support. Well, we've sent them munitions. Well, we
provided intel.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, providing intel is the technicality that actually drives.
But what is intel? I mean, therein lies. Okay, well, Elon Musk also allowed Russian satellites to receive and send technology.
That's true.
And so in that instance, and guess what? The U.S. wanted to shut down Russia's ability, or NATO wanted to shut down, and a lot of people in the U.S. wanted to shut down Starlink and their ability to send and receive through satellite communications. And Elon Musk said, "No, I'm staying out of this one."
Yeah,
everybody can freely send and receive. Yeah,
well, in all reality, that's probably the better choice that Elon could have made.
Absolutely, it's weird, but Elon Musk may have kept us out of a third world war so far.
Possibly. So I'm going to touch on NATO because NATO's been brought up quite a bit, and because NATO is a huge portion of the whole Ukraine-Russia issue. Yeah. So NATO, what was its purpose? Do you remember what NATO was founded to do?
North American Trade Organization. Yeah. I was going to say Alliance.
Not trade, treaty organization.
Treaty,
yeah. So NATO was formed in direct response to Russian or the USSR post World War II, right? Because the fear was Europe was obliterated, basically. Germany had gotten whatnot. Berlin was split between the West and the East. And NATO was put in place to check against the USSR. NATO's mission ended the day that the USSR fell. The simple fact that NATO has been kept around and the U.S. is funding it, being the number one funder for NATO, is absolutely ridiculous. Not only that, they started increasing the NATO member nations. Now, instead of when the USSR fell, Russia said, you have border states in between the NATO nations and Russia. What happened? NATO started taking those border states and putting it in and encroaching. NATO now butting up against the borders of Russia. A lot of the issues that we have between Russia and Ukraine is for the simple fact that NATO, which is no longer needed, is still around and putting pressure on Russia because Russia is being pushed down by the NATO nations.
Well, they don't necessarily care about what NATO has to say. The problem is when
that's not true though, because one of the biggest things like was
what's the coalition of all the states in Europe?
The United Union.
Yeah, the United Nations.
United Nations.
That's more that I think provides more pressure for Russia.
Ain't nobody respect the UN. I mean, the UN just ruled that freaking Israel has to go and pay for damages that they did for their incursion into the North Bank.
Right.
Israel's not going to... They're just going to flip them the bird and tell them to piss off. Ain't nobody respect the UN.
Right, but in that same token, it's Russia... What does Russia care about what America has to say about Ukraine?
It's not about what America has to say about Ukraine. It's about the simple fact that NATO keeps increasing its power and encroaching on Russian border states.
Right.
That's the issue. Russia's getting encroached on, and more member nations are going into NATO.
Right.
I'm not saying that's the full reason
why.
why.
But the United Nations is still the kind of agency that rules.
But Russia was part of the UN as well.
Right.
Until they invaded Ukraine and
right.
then everyone kicked them out.
Right.
So.
Right.
A lot of how to say it. I guess I'm saying that we're wasting a lot of taxpayers' money funding a organization that no longer has a purpose because its entire purpose fell the day the USSR fell.
Yeah, but I mean, it's all it is a money laundering scheme to funnel money for war. That's all it is.
Yeah,
and that's all it ever was. And realistically, that's if it wasn't that, we just tear it down, call it something else, and call it the whatever organization, and we be doing the same thing.
So NATO, one of the biggest things with NATO was they put that in place, and America was a part of it. England, France, Poland, a lot of these places were part of it. One of the biggest things is if Russia or the USSR ever invaded, the other nations would come into their aid. With the simple fact that they're expanding it into all the fallen USSR states and then pushing up onto Russia, it increases the chance that something pops off and that NATO has to go to war against Russia when NATO's whole mission was not against Russia, it was against the USSR. That's all I'm saying is no longer have the NATO no longer serves a purpose. The UN doesn't even serve a purpose in all reality.
Well, and that's one of those things where the original goal of what NATO was, I mean, organizations shift all the time. And so I'm sure they changed the language and they changed, hey, we're going to expand our definition from just USSR aggression to, making sure that there's no nations that are trying to, whether it be China or whoever else. And that's probably the way they got around all of that.
Oh, I'm sure they did that, but it goes back to what you said. It's a money laundering scheme.
Yes.
That's all it really is.
Yeah.
I'm just pro getting rid of NATO, or at least us backing out of NATO. And you guys, hey, if you can fund yourselves, you guys keep at it. But we shouldn't be sending our taxpayer dollars to fund a European organization. I'm done with that.
Literally hundreds of trillions of dollars.
So,
again, to a conflict that we're not actually in as far as war.
Yeah,
it's
so,
and yet look at what's happening in our country right now. And
oh God,
we talked about the economy already last week, but it goes back to where are our priorities?
Yep.
The open borders, letting literally anybody in. I saw somebody filming at the border, Chinese people walking in. They're asking them questions. Hey, what are you doing here? Just pouring in, just walking. And it's not just Hispanic, poor, refugees that are coming in. It is Chinese people. It is Russian people who are walking in, not answering any questions. Open borders for spies, espionage, just opening ourselves up to an attack from within. And we're sitting there going, we're not actually involved in this war, even though we've spent hundreds of trillions of dollars. Hey, we just want to leave our borders open because it's the most caring thing we can do. We legitimately have, not just for a national security perspective, but we just the lack of care and commitment for our own citizens across the board. It's neglect for your own people.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So you're moving into the last topic I wanted to get into, which is the Kamala Harris interview.
Oh, okay. I
So-
did not catch that. Yeah.
No, I know you didn't catch
Yeah.
it. I asked you. I didn't catch it other than a couple of highlights.
Yeah.
It was, she had, what's his name? Tim Waltz.
Waltz.
God, that guy's a Tampon Tim. Did you hear about this?
No.
Okay, so his nickname is Tampon Tim.
Oh, wait. Was that regarding the schools?
Yeah.
Okay. Go
All,
ahead.
all
Go
boys'
ahead.
bathrooms are now going to have to carry tampons. Yeah. Tampon Tim.
Yep.
Yeah. So, oh my God. Okay. So it was him, and he was closer to the camera. Kamala was back. She looked very demure next to him. He looked very larger in life.
Yeah.
It was both of them in dark clothing. Dana Bash, I think, was the one that was hosting it, doing it. But I mean, just the ambiance was very dark and dim, and it wasn't bright. It didn't convey like a bright future. And then there was coffee cups strewn around. I mean, it was visually unappealing.
Do we have a photo of that?
You know
Would that take too much time to
No,
pull up?
let me see. Oh, I don't know if it's going to load.
That's all right. I
Let's
was
see.
just wondering.
No, we're going to get it, man. We're going to get it.
All right.
CNN Kamala interview. Let's look. Your clock is behind. Update date and time.
Okay. Here we go. Live. Okay. Whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
There we go. No.
What? What's going on?
Change date and time. Oh.
It is August
31st.
Is it the 31st today?
Change time zone? Yeah. It's 31st today. Automatically?
We're
Okay.
in Mountain.
Yeah. Okay. We should be good then.
Press OK. Hold
Rabbit
on.
trail.
Go here. Sorry, guys. We're fixing this on the fly. What time is it?
It is not 11:47.
No, it is definitely
9:01.
9:01. Okay.
09. I don't know. Okay. We can't apply.
What?
I have no idea.
It changed it. Look it.
There we go.
So now do you think the internet's going to work here? Well, you know, can you pull it up while we're talking
There
here?
we go.
Yeah, let him run it.
Yeah,
He's the producer for a reason.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, what did you get as far as clips or what was covered? Yeah.
So it was, like I said, the visual of it was really bad. And she didn't have an answer for anything. All of her policy positions are non-position, basically.
Right.
It almost seems, how to say it? It's like they want to do what, yeah, there you go.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Switch us over to screen share so they can see.
Okay. Interesting.
We're frozen. we got too much stuff running, guys. Hopefully you guys can hear us. Bring up the picture. Takeaways from CNN. So
There we go.
But yeah, she was talking about the
Why
economy.
are her eyes black? I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Her eyes look totally.
No, they look completely black,
They look lizard people
like
black.
demonic.
Yes,
almost.
demonic black. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. CNN's
There
obviously.
we go. There. Okay. Now she
th-
looks
now
human.
that-
Okay.
Yeah. That one picture did not,
Yeah.
Anyway, the policy positions that she was taking, she's now going to be hard on the border.
Yeah.
She's now going to fix the economy. She's now going to do all these things. And I'm just like, you're part of the administration that is what's responsible for where we're at today. So
Yeah.
why should we?
Why you're gonna do it in 4 months? Why don't you start now? If you start now, we'll trust you.
Yeah. Transitions back to main event and close the internet because then we're going to have to restart in the computer between our next filming, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just very, very interesting to me that they're sitting there saying, yeah, we're going to fix things later, not right now.
Yeah, I know we're still frozen.
Yeah.
Like, the whole thing is just kind of laggy right now. I don't know. I can't tell. Yeah, so we're just using way too much CPU right now. So we're gonna have to. Yeah, we got audio.
Okay.
It's just we're using way too much processing power right now.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I think this is a point where we're going to end it then because we're frozen anyway. I mean, we hit all the main topics, I think, that we wanted to hit.
Yeah.
So, and on Wednesday, we're going to have a conversation about IVF. And I kind of want to have a moral, ethical, and technological conversation that I think we're going to have not as just the people, but our politicians are going to start to have because, I mean, as we continue to progress forward in life, is IVF good? Is it bad? I personally think it's net positive, personally. And we'll get more into that. I know we talked about it yesterday or the day before.